Are you ready to embark on a journey of success? To discover your true potential in the untold stories of careers in life sciences? Welcome to Pathfinder by the Purdue Institute of Inflammation, Immunology and Infectious Disease. With your host, Tommy Soares, discover the untold stories of industry scientists and unveil the secrets to excelling in your career. Thank you for joining us once again, and remember to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Welcome, fellow Pathfinders. My name is Tommy Soares, Director of Scientific Strategy and Relations at Purdue Institute of Inflammation, Immunology and Infectious Disease. Today, we have a true pioneer in our midst, Kyle Mohler, the visionary founder and CEO of Insignum AgTech. He was raised in a crop farm in central Indiana. Kyle witnessed the release of the first ever biotech genes, BT and Roundup Ready, which revolutionized farming. Through high school and college, Kyle farmed a field of dreams, sowing the seeds of his future in agriculture. Armed with a PhD in plant biochemistry from the prestigious University of Edinburgh in Scotland, Kyle's quest for knowledge knew no bounds. It was during his time as a postdoc at Purdue that he conceived the groundbreaking concept behind Insignum AgTech, and Kyle attended short courses at the Purdue Foundry, which is now Purdue Innovates, to craft a robust business plan and prepare for raising investments. While many believe the high costs of R&D and regulations meant being part of a large company, Kyle found another way. Today, Insignum AgTech stands as a testament of his unwavering dedication, transforming agriculture sustainably. Thank you for joining us as we celebrate this inspiring journey of Kyle Mohler, a true pathfinder guiding us towards a greener, brighter tomorrow. So let's set forth on this adventure of innovation and discovery together. Welcome, Kyle, to the Pathfinder program. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me on. Boy, it's great to feed off of the energy in the room. Boy, it's what a great introduction. Thank you.
Absolutely. I've been waiting to speak to you for quite some time. Your background as a molecular biologist, biochemist in plants, and I want to hear how that turned out to be this entrepreneur in creating a new company, and we want to hear what that journey was all about. It sounds like quite a trajectory. I wonder if you could take us to the beginning or as far back as you want to take us.
Well, sure. You hit on one of the key points of my background already, that I was raised on a farm here in Indiana. So I was part of doing 4-H and FFA, and so agriculture has been baked into my ethos or into my psyche, and so I have a real passion for agriculture, and so that naturally led into studying plants and plant biochemistry. Not that I had set on that as a career path, but it was when I was an undergrad at Purdue. I did a couple of internships at Dow AgriSciences just down the road and on the north side of Indianapolis. And there it really opened my eyes to the possibilities of what we could do with molecular biology and plant technologies. And so, from there, it really lit a fire in me.
And do you think being exposed early on to a company like that gave you motivation to form your own company, or at least see the mechanics of how an ag company functions?
Absolutely, I think that's right. The difference in academic research versus a company, has a lot of parallels and overlaps, but introduced me to the contrast as well, and having the real focus on products and getting something out into people's hands that they can use on a day-to-day basis was pretty exciting for me. I really appreciate the academic research too, because so much of this product development is built on the backs of the knowledge that's generated in an academic setting, and so I don't want to slight that at all. But yeah, for me, I just got really excited about creating products.
And that seems to be almost thematically the similar inspiration that a lot of people do get in jumping from the academic lab into an industry lab or circle, to do something that is closer to delivery and can make an impact on human lives. Is that something that you got? I mean, you talk about your early days in the farm. Is that something you got in the farm, that you knew that you were raising plants that would go to feed animals and people, that and that connection being so close, from the farmer to the table, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We even in my family, we ate some of the animals that we raised, and so it was a very tangible, fruits of your labor
Yeah,
kind of endeavor. And so, yeah, it was absolutely something that helped to create that drive in
yeah.
me. And working with your hands and doing something practical, it gives you a real sense of accomplishment when you can look behind and say, this is what I did today. In in a research setting or in a lab, sometimes you toil for a long time,
Yes.
and it's very abstract, right? It's like, yes, we're making great accomplishments, but it's just different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is different, and it's less tangible, I think, as you said, it is. And maybe, there's so many what would be seen as failures in the lab, where things just don't work, experiments just don't do what they're supposed to be doing, but those failures obviously lead us to great discoveries and great adventures in the scientific world, especially in biology, molecular biology. What was it that attracted you to say, I'm here in Indiana, you did your undergrad at Purdue, and I think I want to go to Scotland? What was it about Scotland that drew you, Kyle?
Well, so I was very fortunate to have some great mentors when I was both at Purdue and during my internships, and it really opened my eyes to realize that people are quite different in other parts of the world than we are in Indiana. So I knew I wanted to get out and broaden my horizons. I was under the impression that we spoke the same language in the U.S. and in Scotland. I was awoken to that pretty quickly when I went over there, but no, it was a great experience, and I'm very glad that I did, and it really did change me in ways that I did not expect, and that have been formational in my life moving forward.
I want to get into some of those impactful times in Edinburgh, but I want to. You mentioned mentors here at Purdue and at Dow Agro that you interacted with. Tell us a little bit about these.
So what I did research in the lab of Peter Goldsborough, who is actually Scottish himself, and so he was really helpful in telling me that it's possible, and showing me that really it's okay, you can do this. I had a very influential mentor at Dow AgriSciences called Pon Samuel, and we've stayed connected even today, throughout all of these years. He encouraged me to really go for it, and told me that it's not nearly as scary as I thought it could be, and he did his PhD in Germany, and so it was very, very encouraging, and just showing me that yeah, you can do it, and giving me that um, comfort that yeah, even though you don't know what's on the other side of the ocean, like I had never been to Europe before I accepted my position in the EU, or in Scotland, but well, they were in the EU at the time.
Yes.
Um, yeah, but that was okay. It made it seem like it was a very doable thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that encouragement, and within that word encouragement, there is the word courage, that they imparted you with. It sounds like they really gave you the wings that allowed you to fly across the ocean. And so
Yeah,
take us back to that day. You land, you didn't land in Edinburgh. You landed probably, or you did, or you
yeah, I
landed
did.
landed in Edinburgh. You didn't go to
Yeah,
Glasgow and then to Edinburgh. Okay, so
no,
you
no.
landed in Edinburgh. Tell us about that day. What was it like landing there? And you're like, okay, everybody speaks English, or so you thought, maybe.
So so day one, you can't tell on this podcast, but I'm a tall guy. I don't sleep on planes very well, and so I show up bright and early in the morning at the airport, and get my bags and shuttle my way into a taxi. Try to have a conversation with the cabbie getting into town, and I had to apologize. I'm like, I'm terribly sorry. I don't understand what you're saying. I felt like such an ignorant American, but yeah, but then it just dropped wholeheartedly in the middle of it. You got to figure it out as you go along. So I drove to campus and to get my key to my room, and I was really afraid of leaving my bags in the cab, to go get the key, because please don't leave. I'm not sure if you quite understand me, but please just stay here. You can keep the meter running. But no, it all worked out really well. Yeah, the people were great, fantastic. Yeah, I have nothing but good things to say about the Scottish people.
Awesome. Awesome. So hospitable people, they were accommodating. That's good. It's
Yeah,
good to hear. Tell us a little bit about the work that you did there, if you can.
sure thing. When I was in undergrad, a lot of people were talking about trying to make second generation biofuels, right? So how do we take the non-food portion of a plant and break it down into its unit sugars, and then ferment those into fuel, right? The concept was there that we're creating so many tons of biomass that just don't get used, and so we're not competing food for fuel. We can just translate all of the rest of this plant material into fuel. So I studied plant cell walls and plant biochemistry. The plant that I ended up studying was an evolutionarily old plant called a horsetail. Dinosaurs ate it back in the day. It had some unique characteristics, and so we were able to get some publications out of that, and even a patent, because there was something unique that they did that no other plants do in the world. And so my lab was very fortunate to be striking up a conversation with Bayer, and so they picked up our patent and ran with it after my PhD.
Nice, nice. So even through your academic work, you got to do something that had deliverable translation and commercialization through Bayer. What was that experience like? Did they come to you guys, or did you go to Bayer and say, "Hey, we have something here"?
It was, so no, I didn't go to them. They had struck up a conversation with my PhD supervisor.
Mhm.
And yes, I think there was a little bit of impetus that if I wasn't thinking about that already, I think we probably would have just published it. But I had a bit of inkling to want to do that, and so I made that encouragement, I guess, and maybe it would have happened without me anyway, without me pushing in that direction, but that was a motivation for me, and so yeah, we filed it with the university, and then brought in Bayer alongside that. And so before that even got down the road, then they started to do some work in their lab as well. And so some subsequent PhD students in my lab picked up the project and moved it forward in other ways. And so it became very collaborative, yeah, from the onset.
That's awesome. That's so good, and such a great motivational aspect, don't you think, to have that kind of like, oh, there is a company who's interested in my results. This isn't just going to go in my thesis and nobody's going to read this. This is like, it might change the product line, it might change what they decide what to do, this and that. That must have been quite exciting and motivational to keep going, right? And
Absolutely. Yeah.
keep okay, so then what brought you back? How I mean, you must have, you finished your postdoc work there and you said, oh, I need to come back to Indiana. What, or maybe even before I ask you that question, how long did it take you to get used to the rolling R's and the like getting your ear used to the Scottish lingo?
Well, I think probably helps to get used to the lingo over a couple of whiskeys.
Yeah.
That makes everything flow a lot easier.
I agree.
No, that was great. I mean, when in Rome, you drink what the Romans drink, right?
Right, right, right.
So no, it was great, and I really, being in an academic setting, I was friends with people from all over, right?
Yes.
Not only just the Scots that were there, but other British people, and then European people as well. So
Yeah.
it was very multicultural there at the University of Edinburgh.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's I can imagine it must have been a melting pot of so many different people, like Purdue, right? Purdue attracts so many different nationalities, people from different places. It's such a, as I said, melting pot for people. Okay, so you're finishing your postdoc in Edinburgh. You finished your doctoral work, and then you did a short postdoc in Edinburgh before coming back.
Yeah, in just that time after the PhD and before starting the next position, yeah, it was a short time there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what brought you back? What was the impetus to come back?
So it was a number of things, but yeah, so I spent some time at doing a postdoc in Georgia as well, before coming back to Purdue. In Georgia, I worked at the Complex Carbohydrate Research Center, one of the premier carbohydrate institutes in the world. Again, studying plants that would potentially be used for biofuels. But around that time, fracking really started to take off, and took the price of oil down significantly. I don't know, maybe in half or something like that. And people had lost the desire or the strong push to continue trying to make biofuels from plant biomass. So it was around that time that I realized, yeah, that I was going to have to make a shift. And so I was very fortunate to find another postdoc position back at Purdue again, where I was studying metabolism of a plant cell wall component. So it wasn't too much of a shift, but a lot of the rather than studying carbohydrates, then I was studying genetics and metabolism and molecular biology.
And who was that with?
It was with Clint Chappell in the
Okay.
biochemistry department.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's probably where we crossed academic lines, if you want, because I also did a postdoc with him at Purdue,
All
working
right.
on cell walls and the phenylpropanoid pathway.
Right. Right.
But it's so interesting that that coincidence there. And so you're here at Purdue, you're working with Clint. You guys, it's still related to biofuels, right? Or at least digestibility, lignin and digestibility of the plant fibers per se. What then started making you think, oh, I should start my own little company?
Mhm.
I should start moving in this direction.
Okay, so we're gonna get a little bit detailed here, but I think we've got a little bit of time. I don't know how much, I don't know what our clock
Absolutely.
is, but
Yeah, we got time.
okay. So the foundational problem came from conversations that I struck up with my dad and brother, who my brother went to go take over the farm, and in the time that I was away and had come back, the farm had started to use fungicides in order to treat their plants for diseases, fungal diseases. And I learned that they decided to make these fungicide applications in the middle of winter. They would pre-purchase their product and they would schedule a more or less date around when to apply it. And I thought that was absolutely bonkers. It's like,
Mm.
why would you treat your plants before, or think about treating your plants before the seeds are even in the ground? I mean, how do you know if they have disease or not? I mean, why would you go through all of this trouble, right? And then through those conversations, as I learned that number one, it is incredibly difficult to try to scout for diseases, but then once you do see those symptoms of disease, it's already too late to do something about it.
Right.
So the symptoms of disease are often either brown lesions or spots on leaves, or maybe your whole leaf starts to turn purple, or if it gets bad enough, then your entire plant starts to die. Or really, if you're not there in the field trying to look for those things, then it's probably a region of your field is starting to be damaged by this disease by the time you see it, or maybe even the entire field is, right, by the time you see this problem. And you can't heal those lesions. You can't, fix that dead tissue, right? And so in order to be effective at controlling these diseases, farmers have to be preventative.
Mhm.
Right. And so using fungicides becomes like a risk management tool. It's like, maybe you're not going to have disease every year. Maybe it's not going to be in every field, but it prevents that very significant loss on those times when it does come in. And the majority of time, it does enough good to pay for itself on average. And so it's a smart economic decision to do that.
Right.
But I thought, okay, I understand, but surely there's got to be a better way. So another offshoot of the phenylpropanoid pathway that we mentioned earlier in the Chapel Lab is this class of of pigments called anthocyanins. Right, they're the reds and purples and blues that we eat in a lot of our food. Let's say cabbage, for example. Right, red cabbage, that's anthocyanins, or apples or strawberries, or it's a characteristic color of wine. So I was understanding some of the genetics that were involved in this phenylpropanoid pathway and activating anthocyanin production, and then I connected that concept to another academic a piece of knowledge about how plants respond to diseases, right? And so as soon as a spore gets into a leaf and starts to infect, the plant activates its defense system in order to try to fight off that infection, right? And so there are certain genes that get activated as part of that response.
Mhm.
So I put together these two different pieces of things that are already present in the plant, right? The disease response pathway, and use that genetic activation system to then turn on this pigment gene, right? And there we go. Okay, now we have an early warning visible signal for when disease is first starting, so that farmers can treat and know when disease is there, so they can treat when and where, but only if they actually have that problem. And this reaction system happens well before that damage is done or those lesions start to form, right? It's very early on in the disease cycle pathway.
Yeah. And because it's a color change, you can detect it quite easily out in the field.
Right. That's a key point about our technology. So a lot to a scientist, and I'm guessing a lot of the scientists on that will be watching this are familiar with this concept of a reporter construct.
Sure.
Right. And so it's a way to tell when and where genes are turned on. And the most common way, or one of the very common ways to create a reporter construct, is to use a fluorescent gene.
Yeah.
Right. Some people might be familiar with GFP or some of the derivatives thereof.
Yes.
But to my mind, that didn't sound like a very good solution because it is invisible to the eye. So it would be very difficult to detect out in the field. But furthermore, it would be really hard for farmers to connect with.
Yeah.
Right? Farmers don't necessarily think and process and make decisions the same way that other people like scientists do, using data-driven decisions. They're very intuitive thinkers. And I'm not saying that one's wrong, one's right.
Yeah.
Maybe that understanding comes from my time abroad and realizing that not everybody is the same, and that's okay, right?
Yes.
So farmers are very intuitive decision makers, and so having the plants themselves communicate directly to farmers in a way that is concrete and tangible, I thought, oh, okay, that makes so much sense, right? That is something that farmers can really latch onto and understand. Right. But it's going to be really hard, again, to get farmers to walk boots on the ground across hundreds or thousands or eventually millions of acres. Right. So in addition to having this color change that you can see by eye, we want to create a remote sensing capability so that we can use just color cameras to detect these color changes in our crops. And so then that will be something remote and automatic that can feed back this data to the farmers.
And what's that technology, if you can divulge, if you can tell us, because it sounds pretty exciting, this remote sensing piece.
Oh, it's actually not that exciting, and it's not something that we have developed the foundational technology to do. So the class is called Computer Vision Machine Learning, or CVML. I hear that a lot of the computer science or data science group at Purdue is pretty excellent at doing this. Yeah. And so it's the same kind of algorithms that people use for self-driving cars or any of that kind of AI-driven visual sensors or camera feeds, right, that can automatically detect, a person or a vehicle or a tree or something like that in a video feed. It's that exact same system that we'll use to identify these purple colors.
And would that be on drones carrying these cameras that are flying over the field and looking at the different rows, different plants?
Certainly, it could be, right? That's one platform. I mean, if we get the whole plant to turn color, then that is a big enough phenotype or physical change that we could see from a satellite, right? But furthermore, these days we're getting more and more cameras to be mounted on something that's on the ground, right? Like a tractor or a sprayer, right? So right now, farmers can start to purchase sprayers that have cameras on the boom that, as they drive through the field, can distinguish between a crop and a weed, and then as it's driving, just individually turn on that sprayer nozzle to just spray the weed, right? So that's another application of this CVML technology, right? Is distinguishing the features of a crop versus a weed, and do that, in milliseconds, right? And so that exact same system then could be used, put a different algorithm on the cameras to identify our purple colors rather than the weed. And so as you drive through the field, a farmer could be treating for diseases or other things in the future, right? On the fly or as they drive.
Yeah.
So it could be that two-step system where you get the data first, then you go out and you apply, or it could be as you go.
Yeah, so neat, so neat. So it sounds like you're getting into different types of sciences too, not just the biochemical, molecular, and biotechnology type of training that you've had. Now you're starting to get into these types of other technologies. It's so neat to
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's great to see this transformation and this, this build up and exploration into new technologies. But I want to come back and I want to hear from you. What are some of the what are some of the difficulties that you've encountered in building your own company, in building your own technology? Because you do talk about that, or at least in your introduction, I made a point about talking how, many people do think that you need to go with a large company like Dow Agro or Syngenta or whatever it might be, to be able to produce a new plant product like that. But you've decided to go a different route, and you've started something on your own. And I, I think it's valuable for our listeners to hear some of the hurdles and challenges that you've encountered as you've done so.
Well, there have been no short of challenges and difficulties and failed experiments, like what you said earlier. Um, I hope we're able to address those failures as quick as we can and iterate and move past them as fast as we can. That's a real kind of skill, I think, that gets developed in this kind of a setting. But more to the point that we were just talking about, one of the things that I've learned is that I can learn things, and I can learn completely new and different things, like trying to create this CVML output or algorithm, but it makes an awful lot more sense to try and collaborate with people, right? When you're in a big organization, sometimes you can pull in resources, or maybe you can convince some people around you to help support what it is that you're doing. But when you don't have that baked in, then you have to go out and find those, and then convince people of your vision and sell them on the opportunities, right? And it becomes very psychological about, all right, I need to understand where that other person is coming from, what motivates them, what demotivates them, and how do I structure or organize our collaboration in a way that is beneficial to both, right? It's not just simply, oh, hey, let's apply for a grant and we both get some money out of the deal, right? It's a completely different set of motivations in that situation. And that's one thing that I wish I would have done sooner, is to bring more different people on board, both in the team and then in collaboration with third parties as well, right? To help advance some of our technologies faster, or to just recognize that, hey, other people are experts in doing this thing. We don't need to create this capability. Let's just collaborate and make it work.
That is such a key point and piece of advice for anybody that is starting, because yes, as a startup, you kind of have to take on so many different responsibilities, so many different roles. But what you said is so important, is to sometimes recognize, wait a minute, is it worth for us to try to tackle this, or find the actual partner that can help us with this? How, you said something that struck me as very important as well, is finding the way to understand the other side of the table and their motivation, what they need. How do you do that? What are some of the techniques, or what have you learned are effective ways of understanding when you're in this, you're trying to sell your ideas, sell your services, products, or whatever it might be, but you know that you're selling to somebody who's also trying to sell to you their ideas and their products. And and so what are some of the techniques that you can give us or advise us if we encounter these situations?
I think a lot of it is empathy, right? Trying to put myself in their shoes and understand what's going on. And the way that I get a foundational understanding of that is by talking to other people like mentors or colleagues or somebody in my network to say, hey, I want to go talk to this company. Do you think they could be interested, or do you think they would try to be in competition with us for this kinds of thing, for this kind of technology? So first of all, it's talking to other people and getting input from people that I trust.
Mm-hmm.
And or maybe it's getting input from a few different people and that I don't necessarily have as much of a relationship with, but if I get the same response from 3 different people, then it's probably right. And I should probably listen to that. Of course, there's an enormous balance though between sorry, let me stay focused. A balance between believing in yourself and trusting your own gut, right? Because nobody else is doing exactly what we're trying to do. Nobody else is thinking about these problems in the exact same way that we are. And so I've got to have confidence in our own insights and in our own position in it, without just believing anybody and everybody that comes down the road. Because man, there's an awful lot of people who are going to tell you, well, I don't think you're doing that right, or you're barking up the wrong tree, or that might be interesting, but I would do it in a different way. There's an awful lot of criticism out there, and so it's being judicial about which ones to listen to. And then the next step then is to just start talking with groups and listening. So that could mean a collaborator, having a conversation and say, hey, coming into it and just having an exploratory conversation, right? What motivates you? What do you think about this? And then trying to feel the way forward as you go into that relationship. And it's really the same way that we have been taught to talk to customers as well. It's like, we're not trying to build this product in a silo where we spend years developing it and then try and release it into the world. I mean, we really want to collaborate with our customers in the development process, right? So it's a lot about, hey, this is what we're trying to build. Do you think this could work for you? What are the key features that you need to have? Which ones are nice to have? And which ones do you not really care about that, me as a scientist, I might be really excited about, but if it doesn't serve our purpose and serve our customers, well, then we need to put that to the side. So yeah, it's in a lot of conversations.
But so again, like you must be savvy about how to have those conversations so that they are providing you with the best information and the best insight. Have you had more insight on human psychology as you're getting more through these conversations? Tell us a little bit about that dynamic, as you are, you're the founder and CEO, you're responsible for this company, and like you have to play sometimes the game of being a psychologist, human psychologist, as you're describing here in your communication and the ways that you have to interpret, or at least like how do I decide which advice to take, which is the best advice down the road, and why, and how do I decide that person is the right person to give me that advice? So
Well,
human psychology, yeah.
Yeah, and in my background, I say that I'm a farmer and a scientist, and both of those things are archetypes are very good psychologists, right? No, they're not.
No.
Not necessarily people that are known for that. So I have to credit my wife first and foremost, for teaching me, yeah, what's most important about listening and about empathizing. And so that was, yeah, the first, yeah, very serious relationship that helped me to yeah, open my eyes and open my ears in that way. So, but of course, I got some training when it came to a business setting. It's like, these are the key things that you need to be listening for. You know, people are not necessarily going to tell you what keeps them up at night, but you need to try and figure that out, right? What are the things that would really motivate them, and what are some serious problems for them? And that's how you have to read between the lines to figure that out. So it's practice, an awful lot of practice, feedback from mentors. Say, hey, this is what I heard. It's like, oh, okay, so this is not what they said, but this is what they meant, right? So now go to talk to, you know, more people and see if you get that replicated, right? These are the things you need to be listening for. So it's a lot of coaching and listening to develop that skill too.
So again, coming back to the soft skills that are so important for success everywhere you go, whether you're in academia or in industry. You touched on something again that I think we've heard before, but I want to bring it up because we don't hear it enough. And I think it's very important. And it's this concept of empathy, trying to understand what is the person across the table from you, what's their motivation, what are they going through, how can you help them more than to seek to, you know, solidify the deal, make money, type of thing. What is it about empathy that you think drives for success in either your day-to-day or in your business relationships that you're forming?
Oh gosh, what is it about empathy?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I think a lot of people, yeah, are. I mean, nobody does business altruistically, right? I mean, everybody's has their own motivations when they come into the room, and they have their own, you know, how they're feeling that day, and what could be influencing them in that particular moment. So I mean, before I go to sit down and talk to another company or an investor, yeah, I'm trying to gather whatever information I can that's in the news or on their social media, try and see what they have at least publicly said they want to try to do, or what might be going on in their sphere, so that I can speak to the things that matter to them most, right? I mean, I can't just walk into that and be purely focused on what I want and need, right? It's got to be mutually beneficial. And so, yes, it's not like I'm going to roll over and say, yeah, we'll do whatever you want, right? Because there are still things that we need to get out of the deal too. But very much seating that in a position of, okay, well, let's see how we can work together, and how we can get the best out of this relationship.
but that homework that you do, I think that's important too, because
Yeah.
it allows you then to have some, hopefully some insight as to how to approach the person, not necessarily just the business or the company or whatever it is, but how to approach the person, which we've discussed before, how being likable is also a game changer sometimes, because people are biased, and if they like you, then they'll do business with you, or they'll hire you, or they'll, you know, whatever it might be, promote you, or however it is.
Yeah.
But so maybe it is this, if you approach the situation, approach the interview, approach the meeting and so on with empathy, you become more likable to people. People realize, oh, you actually care about me, and so I like that. You know, that you care about me. It's so
Yeah.
important. I think, you know, you express it well in the way that you know, you you're being conscientious of what that person needs, and you're hopefully bringing some of that to the table too. What it, yeah,
if you allow me to jump in here,
please, this is your Pathfinder.
Another really key soft skill, since you were talking about soft skills earlier, that is absolutely critical for anybody who's thinking about starting a company or a startup, is tenacity or grit. Right. I kind of touched on it earlier. There's an awful lot of people who are going to tell you that you're not doing it right, or that you're not doing it fast enough. You're not doing it well enough. You're not generating enough data. You're not. And then there's also a lot of people who are going to tell you no. Right. You walk into that meeting and you've put a lot of time and effort into preparing for this collaboration or for this conversation, and they say, well, it just doesn't fit. Or they say, we just think that you're not something, right? And that very well may be true. It could also be something else that's going on with them. And so there's this balance of listening to that that feedback, but also recognizing that, well, maybe that's true, or maybe there's something else going on. Right now, in the middle of 2023, there's an awful lot of investors who are giving excuses for not deploying money that they have in their bank account, that are probably more to do with them than it is to the startups. But anyway, that's a whole other conversation. Yeah. But they're not going to give that as an excuse, the accurate excuse. So grit, right? Grit is really important to say, I have that confidence that, yeah, even though you're going to say no, that somebody else is going to say yes. Or that if you don't think that this is going to work out this way, that customers think that way, be like, I respect your opinion, but I still think that we've got something that is really outstanding. And so I'm going to keep going and keep finding that pathway until somebody says yes.
And how do you keep motivated to stay positive? And are there any tips and tricks? Because that's a way I totally feel that it's a great path for success, because you're just determined, right, to succeed, to find the way. It's not there's only one way, but to find the way, or a way. How do you stay motivated?
Oh man, that's a heavy question. It is tough. It is tough a lot of times. For me personally, and different people have different ways that they find it. But for me, it's talking to customers, right, and talking to people in the ecosystem. I mean, when I explain what it is that we're trying to build, and 50% of the time people say, okay, that sounds nice, that sounds interesting. Then that's code for not actually that interesting, or I wouldn't pay money for that. Right. It's the other 50% that say, wow, that is amazing. When can I buy this? Yes. Right. And that's what's really motivational for me, to keep looking for that yes, and keep looking for that path forward. So it's like, yes, I know that this can make a difference. I know this can have an impact. I know this is going to be a sustainable business. So how do I get there? Right. And I may have to change. I may have to find a different route. I may have to change the way that I'm communicating about this. It may need to change the product that I'm trying to build. I may need to modify something, but I've got this nugget of something that I can hold on to, that these customers, that these people that I'm building this for really care about this.
Fantastic. Kyle, are there any questions that I didn't ask you that you wish I did ask you during our interview today?
I don't think so. I mean, I touched on trying to set up collaborations earlier. A lot of people that I talk to in my space recommend that if you're thinking about starting a company, go find a partner, a co-founder that you can sit in the trenches with. And when those times get tough, then you've got somebody sitting right next to you, that you're not trying to do it alone. And so I'm very fortunate that even though I don't have a co-founder, that I found some mentors that have really thrown in themselves into this company and helping us find our path forward. So we do have those people, but it took us a while to get there. So the sooner you can find somebody who is completely all in with you, the better.
Fantastic piece of advice. Really, really good. Strength in numbers, go at it together rather than it alone, because you'll go farther together than if you do alone. Wonderful, wonderful piece of advice. Thank you, Dr. Kyle Mohler, founder and CEO of Insignum AgTech. Thank you so much for being our Pathfinder today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Well, thank you, Dr. Tommy Soares, for inviting me. And anybody is welcome to reach out if they think that I can be helpful. In my little space or in my little sliver, I'd be happy to help in any way I can. Absolutely. And can they get in touch with you on LinkedIn? Yep, LinkedIn is a great way to reach out. Thanks. Awesome. Well, thank you again, and hope we get to catch up with you soon again. All the best. I look forward to it. Thanks. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us once again, and remember to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel.